Thanks for listening. This podcast is a ministry of Mariners Church, and everything we do to serve you, our communities, and our global family happens because of your generosity. Your financial support in the month of June is vital as we close out the final weeks of our ministry year. Everything you give equips us to reach our world with the hope of Jesus and serve those around us in His name. To give now and partner with us, visit marinerschurch.org/give or click the link in the show notes. Thank you for your generosity, and God bless you.
Welcome to the If I Had More Time podcast hosted by Mariners Church. This series invites you into a casual conversation with our senior pastor, Eric Geiger, and our teaching team to hear a few insights and truths they wish they had time to include in the weekend message. We hope you enjoy it. Hey everybody, I'm so glad that you tuned in to join us today for the If I Had More Time podcast. My name is Liz Garcia. I'm your host, and I am here with the Doug Fields. I'm so happy you're here.
Liz, I'm excited to talk about this.
Come on.
Yeah, always fun.
We're in week 6 of our series going through the book of Genesis, which has been so rich.
It's been amazing. Last week with Christine was amazing. I'm tired of texting Eric, telling him how good he is. Like, gosh, he's killing it. It's so good.
Oh, man.
It's been a great series.
It has been. It has been. And foundational for our faith.
Yep.
So many rich learnings from the text itself. Just, I think, a lot of new concepts for people. And then incredibly practical, like weekends like this. You gave a beautiful, inspiring message on our lives as worship, really. Our lives as service to God. And I'm really excited for us to get to talk more about that in the podcast today.
Yeah, it was fun. It was Genesis 22 was the text. And it's the Abraham, very famous, Abraham is asked to sacrifice his one and only son, Isaac. And it's a crazy ask, insane, audacious. I mean, I even have a section where I say, like, if you're not a Christian, you got to think we're idiots.
But like, this is the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah, like why would a loving God expect a child to be sacrificed?
Yeah.
And, you know, the point that I tried to make is that the God of Abraham and Isaac is a crazy God, but he's crazy about us, and he loves us. And it wasn't to test; it was really to reveal Abraham's faith that had been developed over the years and decades. And because this weekend was our volunteer expo, is really the idea of the message to prompt us to move into action and serve. And so I went with the angle of Isaac's fear. And how Isaac's fear shows up, you know, in not only in Genesis 22, but in Genesis 26, which if I had more time, I would have, you know, taught more of some of the fear that shows up in Genesis 26. So I encourage people to read that on their own, and you can kind of see the fear. I mention and comment on his fear arising, because when God spared him in Genesis 22, when God says, Abraham, you know, it's obvious that you love me and you fear me and you'll do anything for me, which is amazing. Yeah. You would think that Isaac would go for the rest of his life like, oh, God provides. But that's not the case. You know, in Genesis 26, you know, fear enters in several situations in his life, like all of us. I mean, when, you know, we can say, we can sing and we can praise and we can go, that is the greatest message in the world, whoever's speaking. And then we walk out of that building and fear enters in, like, what? Yeah. Okay, but what do I do with this? And I'm not worthy. And how can I be used?
Yeah. You talked about us as being our limiting factor.
Yeah.
You know, that it is our fear, rather, that's our limiting factor in this. And I'd love for you to get to share a little bit. Doug's so awesome. Before we even were on the set for the podcast, he's telling me exactly where he wants to go with this. He's so passionate about getting to really help tear down some of these walls we've built up of fear that's keeping us.
Yeah, well, because I've worked in the church for 40 years, and so I have watched what moves the needle in terms of discipleship, in terms of people growing closer to Jesus. And there are monumental things, like Rooted is one that is just monumental. But one of the most monumental things for deepening transformative discipleship in the life of a believer is when they serve, is when they get outside of the kind of consumer mentality of just coming to church to be fed, but I'm actually loving other people and serving other people. And that's where people come alive.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that I walk away from them and I'm like, oh, they know Jesus. Like you can tell everything about them. Those are people whose autobiography is filled with chapters of service opportunities.
Wow.
So-
Wow. Where have you seen that? What
Oh
are some
gosh.
stories?
Well, right now where I'm seeing it is for the last 6 months, I've been part of the one of our 9 congregations in Trabuco Canyon,
Come on
where
now.
Kathy and I live. And I love it because it's 1.4 miles from my house, as opposed to, we've been driving 30 miles to Mariners Irvine, which has been great, but especially for my wife, because she knows, I know a lot of people here, but, Kathy's more behind the scenes. And now at our new church, she's come alive because our friends and neighbors, and we see people from, around the RSM Lake. And if you don't know where Trabuco Canyon is, it's nowhere. It's like in the
It's
Cleveland
a
National
beautiful
Forest.
area.
It's hillbillies.
Yeah, right.
We don't even have automobiles yet. Everybody's either on a horse or a donkey. But it's great. It's great. And so what I've watched over the last 6 months has validated what I feel in my soul is that when people give, when people serve, well, actually, I'd say it like this: you're never more like Jesus than when you serve.
Wow.
I mean, think about it. Jesus came to serve, and had told his closest followers, if you want to be first in the kingdom of God, put yourself last.
Wow.
Serve others. He demonstrated, he modeled it, he taught on it, and I'm watching just people come alive. As I was driving here, I was thinking one of the things about Trabuco Canyon is I'm convinced that people want to find meaning in their life. And one of the ways they find meaning is by helping others. So because our congregation is, it's not small, but it's smaller than Mariners Irvine, I everybody who comes, I see them. I'm there for both services. I see everybody, and they tell their stories. And
Wow.
so last weekend, after Christine spoke, there was the prayer time.
Yeah.
And we have all these people lining up. And there's a woman in our church. Her name is Elizabeth. And she went up to the front to pray for people. And I was there. I was standing in the back, and I was watched this woman get up, walk past like 6 other people, and went straight to Elizabeth. And the prayer was about her forgiving her mother, asking to forgive her mother. Well, that was Elizabeth's issue as
Wow.
well. And so Elizabeth is about to pray and asked the girl, said, "What's your mom's name?" And the girl said, "Elizabeth."
You stop it.
And Elizabeth said, "That's my name." And Elizabeth hugged her, and she said this girl wouldn't let go. It was like a hug from a mother.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a beautiful moment, beautiful story. But when Elizabeth retelling that, there was this essence of joy and meaning and purpose. And can you believe God used me? And so I'm seeing stories like that all the time at Trabuco Canyon. We had one of our gentlemen, his name is Eddie. He oversees our guest relations to keep kids safe and different things like that. And I mean, we had a couple weeks ago, the police came in. They were chasing a guy. Again, this is where the hillbillies live. They were chasing this guy who was running through our school, and Eddie sees the cop cars coming in the parking lot, and this guy's running, and Eddie tackles him. Okay, tackles him. Cops come, arrest him.
A volunteer, a Trabuco Canyon
Trabuco
safety
Canyon
volunteer tackles
this
a
guy
man.
in between. Luckily, it was in between services, but tackle him. This guy's older than me. I'm like, Eddie,
Come on,
you're,
Eddie.
you're insane. How do you do that? And but he, military background, police force background, the whole bit. Prays for the guy as he's being led into the cop car.
The man he tackled.
The man he tackles, prays for him. That guy has now shown up every week since to our church.
You're not telling the truth.
I am telling the truth. I'm totally telling the truth. This guy, it's a
on.
story. And
Wow.
Eddie tells that story, and he's like, I just said yes to
Yeah.
security, and look how God has used me here. And so one of the things about serving and meaning and purpose is that this weekend is all about, trying to mobilize our people, not to fill it. God's got the people for us. We're not trying to just fill spots. We're inviting people into meaning and purpose. And so what I've learned is that when people say yes to whatever opportunity it is, when you hear us promote or announce something, say yes to those opportunities, because it might just be step one to something greater and more fulfilling. Even though, you might be standing behind an iced tea barrel, just serving iced tea and think, what am I doing? But God can use that to develop a faith muscle in you that a year later you're doing something that is, more significant to who you are. Everything's significant serving in the kingdom. Every body part is needed. But I've learned over the years that just because somebody says yes to something doesn't mean that's where you're going to be for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You'll find your meaning and purpose and go like, this is me. I can't imagine not doing this.
Right. Sometimes in the most unexpected places, something I would have never anticipated.
Totally. Well, speaking of the guest relations, years ago, there was a guy, Jim McNeff, who was, every time I would speak, he'd be, doing the security thing, but he'd always talk to me about teenagers. Like every time and he'd have stories about wanting to do these things in high schools. And I said, Jim, why are you doing security? You should be doing youth ministry. And he's like, no, I have a law enforcement background. They need me. And I got him to make the move, and he just came alive. So he was saying yes to service, which was great. And we needed him in that security team. But when he said yes to that security team, it just opened up the door for him he then became a teacher and a discipler, and he's got this lineage of boys that he's mentored and discipled. It was just richer and more fulfilling.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage people, I encourage people this weekend to get involved and, check a box or just put a question mark. But that might be the open door to something more wonderful for their life than they might ever dream or imagine. So all that to say, I know I rambled a lot, Liz,
No,
but
that's good.
Trabuco Canyon, what I'm learning is that people want meaning in their life. And this is one of the ways. You don't find meaning just being a consumer,
Right.
taking care of yourself. You find meaning by serving others. And we give a snapshot of that in the Rooted, serve experience.
Right.
And it's like a tasting. But you walk around the property at Mariners, and you see people come alive, whether it's children's ministry or parking or wherever. You can tell when they found a spot, and they're like, oh, this is me.
Yeah.
I could not see myself doing certain things, but that's okay. Other people can, and they're great at it.
Yeah. How did you get your start serving?
Was asked. I was a teenager, brand new Christian, and my youth pastor asked me if I would help him lead junior hires. I'm like, I don't even know the Bible. He's like, just be 1 week ahead of them. And that's where I started. It was asked.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's
So,
wisdom right there.
Well, really, here's what I find people are either asked or they're called.
Yeah.
And so if people are called to serve, they're going to find their way to something. But the majority of the people that I've seen over the years, they're asked.
Yeah.
And that's where we talked this weekend about fear.
Yeah.
Is that the fear kicks in. As soon as you're asked, the fear kicks in, and like, I'm not good enough. Who would listen to me? I'm not worthy. I'm not a good enough Christian. I don't know the Bible enough. And that was the message this weekend. God provides what you need.
Yeah. Yes.
Do not fear. I am with you. And in our faithlessness, God is faithful.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something really beautiful about this text that, this emphasis, God is with me, and that sometimes it is just the ministry of your presence, sometimes that we serve with, just the showing up that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm smiling. You shared a story about the couple at Marriage Matters who said, oh no, I could never, with agreeing to that 60-minute meal with a younger couple. And Roddy and I actually just had the opportunity to sit down with a couple in our church who's a couple seasons ahead of us. And they didn't really have an agenda with us. We didn't have an agenda with them, but man, did it bless us.
Yeah.
And it was just because they chose to just be with us.
Yeah.
It really was just their simple yes to say, we'll step out and take the risk and just go spend time with a younger couple. So what would you say to the person who's listening right now, who's feeling the nudge and is going, okay, I think I need to do this. What should they do right now?
Well, just pause and thank the Lord that He has implanted in you this desire for meaning. I mean, they feel the nudge all the time.
Yeah.
Because we're called. Part of our spiritual DNA is to serve others and to love others. So if you're not feeling that, I would say that, that might be an indicator of your need to grow closer to God, because as you grow closer to God, you're going to find that I can't escape this. It's just gnawing at me that I have to do something with my life in the service of others. So I'd say, right now, thank the Lord for putting that in your spiritual DNA. And then if you're not connected to people, just call the church and say, I'm listening now, but I wasn't there this weekend. I didn't fill out the form, or I took the form and I was like, I didn't believe Doug and I left it under my seat or whatever.
Right.
We got a spot for you.
Yeah.
And I said to you, Liz, I said, we put boxes on this form, like, chill all the needs, but if you don't know, put a question mark on there, which is basically says, I'm not going to allow fear to limit me. I'm going to put a question mark. I'm going to give you my information. And this is truly behind the scenes stuff. I said to Liz, if people put a question mark, what should we do as a staff, as a church staff? Like we better follow up with them.
Yes. And
right?
I assured him we have an awesome team
Yeah.
who is so committed to helping you guys find the spot that's right for you. And and right for right now,
Right.
Just
so if it's a question mark in your head right now, get a hold of us and we'll give you options.
Yeah. Well, Doug, thank you for you and Kathy too for modeling this. You mentioned her earlier with Trabuco Canyon. There hasn't been a Sunday that I've been there and not seen Kathy buzzing around, welcoming what feels like every person by name, putting her arms around every person, making everybody feel like this really is their home.
Oh, yeah. She's amazing. She makes me look so bad.
Not true.
Yeah, she does. She's like the first to get there, the last to leave. She's doing everything, and it's great.
Yeah.
And, but she's doing it in the context of her community, which Eric talked about a couple of weeks ago, that were created for, identity and community, and she's doing it in the sense of in the context of her community and loving it, coming alive. So it's great.
There's a real richness and fullness to a life that's serving in your local church context, isn't there?
Well, this is a little bit of an audible aside.
Come on.
But if you're listening and you are close to one of the other 8 congregations and you're still driving really far to come to Irvine, because, everybody, it's like, this is a great property. You want the air conditioning works. We have a cafe and a bookstore and a huge baptismal. Like, it's beautiful here, but you might be missing an opportunity. Like if you're driving from Santa Ana, go to the Santa Ana. If you're coming in from Anaheim, try it. Just try it, because it's the exact same message. And there's just this opportunity to connect within your community that I think is just really wonderful.
Absolutely. That's a great aside. We can do that anytime
Okay,
on here
great.
if you'd like.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm finding people. I met some guy at CrossFit and he lives in our area and he's like, yeah, I drive into the main campus. I go, it's great. I love it. Been doing that for 15 years. But instead of driving 25 miles, come play with the people here. Like, oh, I want to see the live teaching. Well, I am on a stage at Mariners Irvine and people look past me to the screen anyway. We're screen people.
It's so true.
We are screen people. You get over that quickly.
You can barely get close enough to see in there anyways, right?
Eric looks better on screen than in person.
I hope he doesn't listen to this message. I'm sure he does. Well, Doug, thanks for joining us. Thanks for leading our church this weekend. I'm so excited just to see all that God's going to do with all these people just saying yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear the stories a year from now.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah,
that's good.
Be great.
And thank you guys so much for joining in and listening this week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the If I Had More Time podcast hosted by Mariners Church. We hope to see you next weekend at any of our congregations throughout Southern California or online. To view our locations and service times, be sure to check out our website at marinerschurch.org.